What's an encounter with a celebrity you've had where they were an absolute dick? Cuba Gooding Jr. cut in line ahead of me and my sister for a pretzel at Disneyland. We were 10 and 8 years old, respectively. How good was he in Snow Dogs though? This is late, but it needs to be said. I was a bookstore worker for a large chain in a popular city. We did a ton of author signings and talks. Authors are almost universally great. George R.R. Martin was fantastic and really insightful to fans' questions. Stephen King is awesome and stays for everyone. Chuck Palahniuk is great and really hilarious. Toni Morrison stayed and talked in the coffee shop for hours. Margaret Atwood knows more about books and sci-fi than literally anyone I've ever met. However, the sheet crown goes to Mitch Albom. He's a colossal dick to everyone. He openly berated the baristas and the cafe for his coffee's lack of quality. He was a prick to every employee. He sat in this super tight t-shirt and sat with his left arm behind his right to try and push out his biceps and look buffer. Which is hilarious because he's maybe 5'6" and 130 lbs. I'm not going to go as far and say he sexually harassed women, but he was slimy and gross to every woman in sight from ages 18 to 45. It was the worst signing ever. Plus, he acted like Tuesdays with Maury is wisdom on level with the Dalai Lama. My boss actually had to ask him to leave immediately when his scheduled signing was over. His handler/agent was a very nice woman who was clearly sick of his sheet. That poor lady. Jennifer Lopez. Anyone who has had to arrange for her visits or done military protocol for her USO tours or whatever knows how off the walls batshit crazy she is. She came to visit Ramstein a long time ago, and the general's quarters, the nicest place on a very nice base, weren't good enough for her because everything has to be white. Every single thing. So we frantically found her a hotel room in Frankfurt, 90 minutes away, which was as all white as could be found, and had the pleasure of driving her to / from multiple times a day, while she nagged about making other cars on the autobahn slow down, why her hotel was so far, why she couldn't get her favorite American drinks at a rest stop, etc. She expected Pope and presidential level treatment. She is absolutely horrible, so her attitude matches her music. I was fortunate enough to be involved in a number of films shot in South Africa. I got to meet and greet some well-known celebs, but a few stand out. I will list them in greatest cockwimble to minor cockwimble order. 1. Steven Seagal. Absolute bellend. Was looking for hookers while married, coked out of his head while on set, just a general douche canoe. 2. Kiefer Sutherland. Mamma mia, this guy thought that every time the sun came up it was because he had his pants down to take a sheet. Decent enough to the people who directed and mattered to him, everyone else was treated like dirt. 3. Bob Hoskins. Just generally a bit of a prick, lost his sheet at people for the littlest things. Rona Mitra was pretty nice though, friendly and congenial and just so very pretty eye roll. Leonardo DiCaprio was actually much nicer than I would have expected, took his mom with him wherever he went, was very nice to crew and extras, and pretty much everyone. Great attitude too. Anyway, that's my 2C. Ran into Pierce Brosnan while on vacation in Hawaii before Daniel Craig took the role of James Bond. He was in a gift shop, and we bumped into each other. Out of surprise I pulled out my finger gun and shot him in classic Bond fashion, right in the gut. He staggered back and held his stomach, slowly dying in this gift store in front of me. As a 12-year-old it was the coolest thing ever. I was sitting in the lounge in one of the big music studios in Hollywood, and Bruno Mars walks up, looks at me, and says, "Where the duck is my cab?" I looked at him and said, "Who the duck are you?" I really had no idea who he was, haha. But dude did act like an absolute dick. Nicest guy ever, Billy Ray Cyrus. The studio had a policy that you're never supposed to touch the food any of the artists order or bring in, and you're especially not supposed to take any home. As I was leaving he slipped me 2 huge meat and cheese trays out the door when no one was looking. as an intern trying to make it as an audio engineer that sustained me for almost 2 weeks. Don't forget to like and subscribe to get even more awesome content. Come on, it just takes 1 second. Probably 10 or 11 years ago, I was working BTS of a WWE house show. My job was to find the contest winners and bring them to introduce them to a couple of the biggest stars. My immediate report went to Ricky Steamboat, who was incredible. I had a question for him, don't remember what it was anymore, but he was standing there talking to Chris Jericho. Not wanting to be rude, I stood to the side, waiting for their conversation to end before I interrupted. Jericho stopped mid-sentence, looked at me and said, "Are you ducking Lost?" When Ricky turned around to see who Jericho was talking to, he recognized me and was super pleasant and answered my question, but Jericho was pissed and thought I was a groupie or something. Used to work at a Hard Rock hotel. Mariah Carey was the absolute definition of a ducking diva. She used a bunch of employee passageways and we were instructed that if we looked her in the eyes we would get written up. We were also told that we had to immediately vacate any room that she entered, even if we were in the cafeteria on break or in the bathroom doing our business. She's an assjole on top of that too. A few of her backup dancers accused her of sexual assault during Me Too and nothing ever came of it. Reversal story. Once worked for a large movie company. I was pissed off and at the end of my workday, so when I saw an open elevator not crowded with folk as I was leaving, I quickly got in and pressed my floor number when I heard a thick voice behind me, sounding a bit far away, saying, "Hold the door." I pretended not to hear given sheet mood. Doors are closing and I turn. That's when Schwarzenegger's pissed off face appears behind the slit between the ever closing doors. "I asked you to hold the door," then they shut in his face and the elevator went down. "I'm so sorry T-800. Donking. I didn't recognize who he was and asked for his ID so that I could check him into the hotel. When I looked up from the computer screen, the look he was giving me made me turn completely cold. I genuinely thought we were seconds from this guy reaching out and grabbing me to hurt me for daring to not recognize him. I'm not a big person, and he is a very tall man. Fortunately, a coworker who did recognize him intervened and took over the transaction, giving him what he felt was the proper amount of ass kissing. After that point, as far as he was concerned, I no longer existed. Super rude, but the anger and malice in his expression when I hadn't recognized him just left me grateful to have him turn his attention away. I think he did say something along the lines of, "Don't you know who I am?" But I honestly don't remember it. I just remember the look on his face. I've dealt D-list celebrities and plenty of sports stars who pull the "don't you know who I'm" card all the time, and I'm generally just amused by it. This was something else altogether. He creeped me the duck out. My uncle works at a Vegas casino. None of the Kardashians or Jenners tip anyone. Ever. He was with them for over 3 hours and didn't receive a dime and was treated like total garbage. Scott Disick, however, is a great tipper and great guy all around. I work at a casino and I see quite a few celebrities. Firstly, Kevin James treated just about every employee like they were wasting his time. Just get it done. JLo was banned from one of the casinos I worked, and Mariah and JLo were both banned from the other. JLo famously told upper management she didn't want poor people looking her in the eyes and wanted any staff that went near her to look down. She also demanded a new mattress in our villa, custom made bed BTW, at 3 AM, then tried to get the casino to essentially break into a mattress store she had and ate Google for the mattress she wanted them to buy. God, I'm gonna be here all night lol. Oh, one more. Charles Barkley is the worst gambler I've met in my life. That dude couldn't win a hand if you rigged the deck lol. Oprah didn't tip me on a $200 lunch. Instead she signed a napkin for me and acted like she was doing me a huge favor. The kicker was, when she walked in, they gave away all of my other tables, so she didn't have to wait for anything. So I made $4 hour for 2 hours for the privilege of serving Oprah, and she goes on and on about signing a napkin for me that I never asked for. You get a napkin. And you get a napkin. Everybody gets a napkin. William Shatner paid for a meet and greet. I fumble for my ticket/token to give to the security guy. It literally took 3 seconds of fumbling. He then yells, "Hurry up, will you?" He clearly did not want to be there, took a photo, and shoved me aside. Best celebrity was Ron Perlman, was on the same day. A girl in a wheelchair was in front of me. He gets down onto her level and asks her if she is enjoying herself, and really gave off the vibe like he gave a sheet. He came up to me and firmly shook my hand with a big smile and gave me a one-armed hug and said thanks for coming by. The dude's a saint. Alec Baldwin. Oh, how I now despise that man. Back in 2002, I was at an event for work, and he was a special guest. He appeared to be somewhat intoxicated, and as he walked past me, he plowed into me, spilling my entire drink down the front of my outfit. Never said excuse me, or I'm sorry or anything. Just was a total douchebag, and to this day I will not watch anything if I know he'll be in it. So yeah, I still hold a grudge. I was at a Comic-Con event years ago, and in line at the bar behind Matt Smith, Doctor Who. Dude was plastered and got all up in the bartender's face threatening to get her fired because she had the audacity to ask for ID. The entire time he was demanding to get served drinks, and she should know who he is, and his friend ran the whole thing, etc etc. She clearly was just following company policy and wouldn't relent, needing to see ID. After like 5 minutes of verbal berating, she was on the verge of tears, and a coworker had to swap with her to deal with him. Not a good look. Document. A family friend on mine used to work for Sam in Orlando, and Adam Levine has just played there or something, and just started walking straight through the security checkpoint and she stopped him saying, "You have to wait in line just like everyone else." He replied, "I'm not everyone else. Do you know who I am?" I don't recall what she said back, but he got super pissed and walked to the back of the line. On the brighter side, I got the opportunity to meet Jay Leno, and he was a really nice and down-to-earth guy. He gave my fam and I a tour of his garage and we all talked cars for like 2 hours. Nicest car collection I've seen to this day and still one of the nicest people I've met. Seth Rogen kicked my ass at Counter-Strike the other night and then made fun of me. Opposite case, Adam Sandler filmed a movie in my hometown during peak tourism season. Realizing this, he hired tons of local help, gave huge tips, and did cast photos with everyone at the end. He left town with everyone loving him and his production company after months of rumors about what a pain the whole thing would be. I met Amy Schumer at a hotel bar. The bar was crowded, and I had no idea it was dominated by her and her friends. I sat down next to one of her people and ordered. Amy leaned over her friend and says, "What exactly makes you think you should be here?" I shrugged and said the open seat was my first hint. She looked so insulted, and her friend who I was next to gasped. The bartender goes to put my drink on the bar for me, and Amy puts her meaty hand on his arm and is like, "No, don't serve this ass Joel, he needs to go." Some dude in a black polo came over and said that I was bothering Miss Schumer and needed to leave. I told him I had no idea who this lady was. At the time I had never heard of her and her stolen jokes. He grabbed me by my shirt collar with one hand and gave me the whole macho easy way or the hard way bit. I told him that that line sounded good coming from Stallone, but not from him. Amy then screams, "Just get the duck out," so I beat feet. I didn't see any reserved sign on the bar, and I wasn't trying to chat up her friend. Ducking weirdo bitch. I just wanted a couple whiskers. I'd rather focus on the positive and tell you about people that surprised me. I worked on a 3-day pickup on the movie Extract with Ben Affleck, Jason Bateman and Mila Kunis. At this point in my career, these are the biggest stars I'd worked with. I was pretty used to most celebs eating lunch in their trailers, which is why I was so surprised that all 3 of these pretty big stars chose to eat with the crew. They were all super humble and just listened to people's funny stories and riffing on each other. Jason Bateman had a really bad black eye, macup, so to have him, Daredevil and Jackie from that 70s show sitting across from me and listening to my asinine conversations with the camera department was a truly surreal moment. I was in Arizona for a college soccer tournament, and we were sitting in the lobby of our hotel before we left for our first game. Gary Busey walks into the hotel and I guess I was just staring that direction while I waited to get on the bus. He thought I was staring at him and said, "If you like it so much, why don't you take a ducking picture?" The lady from the front desk immediately came running over and apologized and said he'd been awful to everyone and had even ripped his phone out of the wall after he had been kicked out of the strip club the night before. I didn't know who he was and I'm a dumb college student. So I immediately ran into the hallway to see what room he went into. Then I grabbed a hotel phone in a different area of the first floor and called the front desk. I had only heard his voice once, but Gary Busey has a pretty distinctive cadence. So I put on my best Busey impression and thought, WTH. I said, "This is Gary Busey in room 126. I just walked in, but didn't want to deal with talking to your face again. My ducking phone is still broken, and here I'm using the ducking common people's phone. I expect my phone fixed by 6 PM tonight, so I can receive a wake-up call at 1 AM, 3 AM, 5 AM, and 7 AM in order to take my medication. Did you get that, sweetheart? Thank you for nothing." I thought, surely this doesn't work, but why not, and went and got on the bus and told like 2 teammates. The next day our coach made us be at breakfast at 7 AM because we had an early game. We are sitting there half awake, eating, when Gary Busey, whose hair is literally pointing straight up in every direction, storms up to the front desk. He slams his hands on the counter and yells, "I do not take medicine." The new girl at the front desk looked right at him and replied, "Maybe that's the problem." I have never laughed so hard, but been so afraid at the same time. And even after I think about it and laugh, the fear still remains. I watched Entourage recently, and they could not have depicted him more accurately. Except maybe angrier. I met Tom Cruise once walking down Rodeo Drive. I went up to him and shook his hand. He pulled me in close and whispered "Hail Hydra" in my ear. Congratulations, you reached the end of this awesome video. Now, like and subscribe, like we talked earlier, come on.